Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's offering her debut novel, The Bottom Line, no other than Miss Erica. Andrew, sorry. So, Miss Erica, can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, but my name's not
Edward,
Erica.
sorry. Oh my
So
God. Miss Sophie Edwards. My apologies.
that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. I've been called worse. Um,
Yeah.
yes,
Can you please
so
introduce more about yourself?
absolutely. So I am SB Edwards in print. I'm known as that. In person, I am Sophie Edwards. This is my debut novel, The Bottom Line. I've been working on it for a while, so it's pretty exciting to see it in print as a an actual thing as opposed to just a big file on my hard drive.
Yes. So, can you tell us the premise of your debut novel?
Yes, yes. So, it's about identity. Essentially, it's an exploration of identity and um, how we find meaning in the world, how we find ways to be useful and to feel useful, um, and what happens when that's taken away from us. And I explore that through automation. So my characters, most of the characters are they are construction workers whose jobs are being replaced by robots. And there's like a system in place. So if you are replaced by a robot, if you lose your job to automation, you're still taken care of. And so it's not it like a lot of people today are facing like, okay, well, automation is coming for my job. What do I do with my life? Like how do I pay the bills? How do I take care of my family? All that. In this, it's a little different. It's more of a, what do I do with my life now? I don't have to work anymore. What do I do with my life? And if you're the type of person who likes to write books, for example, or has like creative pursuits and like a strong community around them, like that would be awesome. But on the other hand, I know there are a lot of people who they draw a lot of their sense of self and self worth and their sense of value and purpose through their job. So for people like that, it could be really horrible.
Hmm, definitely. So, what is the central conflict in the bottom line?
Well, it's not it's between one's purpose, like what one wants to do with their life. It's a like, how do I where do I go from here in like my entire sense of purpose has been taken away. So it's a conflict with self, I guess, might be one way to put it, but in a like it, it's like it the like the characters don't know who they are anymore, and it's them trying to rediscover, um not even rediscover, but discover who they are in the broader sense of the world, that in a changing world.
So, what role do dreams and aspirations play in the narrative?
So in terms, it's a the main character um is his name is Auden Black, and he's a construction worker. He's the crane operator on the crew, and he uses as he's up in the crane, he uses like he daydreams a lot because you're up in a crane. What else can you do? And so he ends up thinking a lot about a lot of stuff, but because he's thinking about so much, because he's so like kind of obsessive in nature, um, he he's thinking a lot, but not really about anything in particular. And so he's daydreaming a lot as the world around him is changing, not really realizing that he maybe should be doing something about this changing world. So yeah.
So, how does the book portray the emotional and psychological effects of being replaced by robots?
Well, each of the characters um, interprets it in a different way. Some of them welcome it, some of them think it's wonderful, some of them have a really hard time with it, and others are like haven't quite figured out what they want to, what they feel about it, and so everyone's kind of different.
In every characters. So, what
Yeah.
commentary does the story provide on the ethics of technological progress?
So it's I I like to say I tried to create a perfect world where everybody's miserable,
Mm.
and so it's a like it's a things are changing and humans no longer have to work, but it's not, and not having to work probably sounds awesome to a lot of people. It sounds awesome to me. But at the same time, we don't always realize that there are sometimes some deeper questions at play that we don't realize. Like what are we going to do with people who are displaced through automation? What are and not even in a like how are people going to be taken care of? Though that is, of course, a relevant and pertinent question. But what I was more interested in exploring the bottom line is where do these people who found so much value and purpose through their careers, where do they go from there? What do they then do to find a new sense of purpose?
So, how does automation challenge traditional ideas of a job security and human purpose?
Not sure I understand the question.
How, okay, rephrase. If we say if you are replaced by an AI or something else, what is the emotion that will come to the people who has replaced, who's been replaced?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Um, yeah, and that it depends, right? Like for some people it's scary because it is an unknown. Um,
Yes.
and if you're like a couple years from retirement anyway, then it's probably not a big deal because you're gearing yourself up to retire. So that might not be an issue. If you're just starting out in your career, it might feel kind of anticlimactic in a way where it's like, okay, well, I worked toward this. I trained. I went to school. I did. I interviewed. Um, and then maybe a year or two into your career you turns out you don't have to work anymore, so that might be another feeling where it's like, okay, well then what do I do? um but again, if you like, believe it or not, once upon a time I used to do construction. I did home renovations,
Hmm.
and in that work that I did, I met all sorts of different people, and some of them were really interesting and really thoughtful, thought provoking. One of them is a dear friend of mine to this day, and in other cases, there's like some people have a hard time finding their purpose in life, and like they don't always get along with their spouse. They don't always get along with their kids, or maybe they didn't have kids in the first place. They don't really have like hobbies or any kind of sort of like creative pursuit. And so for a lot of these guys that I met, they're like, not a lot, but for some guys that I met, um, it seemed like the greatest joy that they got, or the greatest peace at least that they got, was through the sort of Zen like movements involved in manual labor, in doing carpentry, in installing flooring or installing tiling, stuff like that. It's a very kind of like, it can be a very meditative practice in a way. And so if you're the type who's doesn't have other um, doesn't have doesn't find fulfillment in other areas of your life, um, that might be, you might not want that taken away from you. I mean, sometimes people don't retire, and that, that is understandable. People want to feel useful at the end of the day, and if they found a way to feel useful through their job, but then that's taken away from them, that can be really impactful. That could be a really negative experience.
What insights does the bottom line offer about balance between innovation and human impact?
I don't. In a way, it's a cautionary tale. In the like, I mean, I'm not like a Luddite or anything. I do think, in general, technological advancement is a good thing. Of course, it needs to be tempered in certain ways, but overall, technical advancement is a good thing. And broadly speaking, the world that I create in the bottom line, the world that I created is a place I think I would like to live. Um, but I think it's less of a uh, caution against technology advancing and more of a um, recognition that we can't forget the humans involved in the process. How we've found to feel useful for hundreds of years at this point is through our careers. And if that changes drastically, that could cause some that could cause some pretty serious consequences for on an individual level. So
So, Miss Sophie, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
um I well uh the bottom line is out now, so I'm excited about that. um I do have other I do have another novel that I've been working on, but it's taken a bit of a backseat for a little while, as I've been focusing more on my YouTube channel. I have a history YouTube channel, so I've been focusing more on that from a writing perspective. But I would love to get to my second novel at some point. Um, I think it's a I think it's a cool concept. I have the I have the premise, I have the setup, I know where it's going to go. I just haven't figured out what's going to happen in between yet. So that's the that's where
Looking
I'm at
forward,
in that regard.
yes, looking forward for your second novel, Miss Sophie. And what would be your advice for those people out there want to write their own novel?
Sure. So, one of the things that allowed me to, pardon me, that allowed me um, to get this thing done is there were a few different conversations I had with myself. Um, One of them was, if I never make a dime from this, is it still worth doing? And for me, the answer was yes, because I like writing. It is fun. It is an interesting process. And so you have to like it. You have to enjoy doing it. If you don't enjoy doing it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yes.
Um, as well, um, another thing that I found was important was carving out a specific amount of time every day to be able to 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 make that time for writing. And during that writing time, I leave my phone at home. I have a separate computer that I use to write. It's back there. It's behind. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it. It's
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. It's right there.
Yes.
So I have a separate computer that I use for writing. It does not have internet on it. It is a typewriter essentially. And I leave my phone in the other room, or I take my laptop to a cafe or something like that. And in that time, I have I've carved it out. It is writing time. So my options are, I can write, I can read. I can stare off into space and think, or I can have conversations with people at the cafe. And all of those are useful in many different ways. I mean, the cafe that I used to write at, I don't. It's not around anymore, unfortunately. But the cafe that I used to write at, the pardon me, the regulars at that cafe, they all made their way into this book one way or another, and so that was another. I guess this is kind of a long-winded way of answering this question. Um, Setting aside specific amount of time every day to making it happen, that was a big one for me. For me, it was 2 hours a day. Not everyone is able to do that. I understand, um, but whatever amount of time it is for you to make time and say, no, this is the time where this is my creative writing time, and that way, like sometimes it doesn't come to you. Sometimes you have writer's block or whatever, but if you set that time aside, then it that I wouldn't have made this book happen otherwise.
Yes, definitely. And stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write. Just like
100%.
me, Sophie Edwards. So, what does the book suggest about the future of human labor in an increasingly automated world?
Well, it's there's not really a lot of human labor at that point. There are certain things that automation will have a very difficult time replacing. Um, Anything that requires um, a sort of like human connection or any sort of empathy, it's going to be very difficult for automation to replace that. Things like therapy, any sort of therapy, speech therapy, like mental health counseling, that kind of stuff, uh, automation is just not going to be able to replace that. In terms of kind of manual labor, it might. Um, and I'm not a technologist. I'm not a like a I'm not an engineer or anything, and so I could be wrong in my predictions here, and I'm willing to be wrong. Um, but like I said, it's less about being about um, worried about automation and more building a society where we're still taking care of people, even if they're not um, working in a job anymore because automation has made that job irrelevant.
So, how does the story balance optimism and pessimism about technology role in society?
Sure. Well, it's a it's a it's a um, how do I put this? It's a positive future because again, more people are taken care of, um, and it is a positive future in that broadly speaking, we don't really need to work anymore. The labor uh, is largely automated, so we don't need to worry about it as much anymore. Um, but on the other hand, it can leave people without a sense of self, very unmoored from their lives.
Definitely. So, me, Sophie, to sum up our discussion or episode for today, uh, what lessons can readers take away about adaptability and resilience in the face of change?
I think, regardless of who you are, you will see yourself in the reaction that one character or another has um, to being replaced by robots. Um, you'll see yourself in at least one of them, and maybe the way that they react um, their their new situation could help you understand what how you might react in a similar situation if we ever get there.
Yes. Definitely. So, Miss Sophie Edwards, I want to apologize again. Thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world and looking forward for more empowering novel like this or novels. More novels to come. So, can
Hopefully.
you please invite our listeners to support the bottom line?
Yes, please. So you can purchase the bottom line through Vreda Literary. I'm sure Daniel will include a link to it in the show notes or something.
Yes.
And then yeah, that's how you get it.
Yes, people, again, let's support Miss Sophie Edwards because if you support her, more novels like this to come. So, Miss Sophie, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon. You are most welcome to come back.